Hi and hello everybody, introduction, but happy to share my great love for flowers, for nature, and primarily it all comes out from uh, the subject which has brought me a lot of solace, lot of joy, and lot of celebration in my life, which is art history. I realized that, a subject like art history, which was really looked down upon when I did it about 35 years ago. Whenever I would tell anybody I'm doing history or fine arts, people would ask me, finance? Uh, what is fine arts history? And it took me another 5 years to really be able to communicate to them that it was the history of the everyday. It was the history of what you see around. It was the history of objects. It was the history of signs, metaphors, not just only painting or sculpture. So when the publisher approached me about 10 years ago, saying that, can you do me a book on flowers in Indian art? I said to him, I told Vikash Nyogi, who had the vision to do a book on flower, I said, can I do it on the culture of flowers? Because by which time, having done art history in India, then having done a postdoctoral in critical art theory from Goldsmiths, which was really a lot of theoretical discourse, a lot of critical learning, which was very, very different to my Indian art history. So the amalgamation of that, and 25 years ago when I did it, cultural studies was becoming something big. So instead of doing a art historical representation of flowers, I thought, why not look at the whole culture of flowers? And in India, flowers are there from the moment you are born to the moment you die. Flowers are part of our everyday, from the Varmala, which is the garland you exchange, the bride and bridegroom exchange, which in our system, the Indian system, because we always have a dhwani for everything, suggested meaning for everything. And in that dhwani, what do you see? The coming of two souls together through the exchange of garlands. And the garland of flowers are fragrant, are colorful, are vibrant. They can be done of, we think of marigold, because that is now synonymous in modern times with uh, because it's one of the most resilient of plants, and it becomes very, very, how should I say, easy to make, also easy to make garlands out, because you have to see utility and practicality. So, beginning with the marriage, where you exchange a garland of flowers, and I want to go back to the myth of, or to the epic of the Ramayana. When Ram and Sita got married, there was a celestial, it is said in the Ramayana that there was a celestial pouring of flowers called Pushpa Varsha. So that blessings from the gods above, when in philosophical terms, Ram being an avatar of Vishnu, Sita being an avatar of the Devi, the two get married, Lakshmi and Vishnu, there is a Pushpa Varsha happening. And that's how I titled my book, which is here, called Flower Shower. So that is how I began my, writing of the book, sharing of my love for flowers. And of course, my favorite flower is the great Parijat flower, or the the night jasmine, as it is called. It is very, very fragrant. The har shringar, as it is known. And again, in India, we are a land of storytelling. There's a story and storytelling for everything. So even the Parijat has a very lovely story. It was in the garden, it was growing in the garden of Indra. And the two wives of Krishna, Satyabhama and Rukmani, wanted that. And there was a great battle. And the diplomatic, clever Krishna planted the flower in one of the wives' home, and the petals fell in the other wife's home. So both Rukmani and Satyabhama were placated because Rukmani had the tree growing in her house and Satyabhama had the petals flowing into her garden. So that is how the whole story of the flowers also begin with the gods. Then there is the other story when the Samudra Manthan happened and there was a churning. The lotus also came out. Lakshmi came out standing on a lotus. So we also go back to the big churning or the Kshirshagar churning happening, and there were flowers there as well. I'm going to go through, today's lecture through the chapters in my book, so that if you really like the lecture, you can buy the book. I had in this book about 10 chapters, 12 chapters actually, where there was a flowering of consciousness. And in this, I just finished telling you about the flower garlands for a Hindu ceremony and how it becomes the coming together of the two souls. What I also wanted to tell you as we go along the book, that flowers become very, very important it's a universal thing. You see flowers definitely in the Indian. I'm going to be talking more about Indian flowers, but I'll also give a little example. For example, Mary is associated with the lily, and you have Lakshmi, who's holding aloft and standing on the lotus, which is also from the same family as the lily. And you have this beautiful fresco of the Bodhisattva, Padmapani, holding a lotus, coming from the cave number 1 in the Ajanta painting, because lotus is also equally important in Buddhism. Om Mani Padmeham. So the jewel in the lotus, the 1,000-petaled lotus. It's a very, very important metaphor in Buddhism as well. So what do you see here? The Judeo-Christian lily and Mary being associated with it, lily being a sacred flower which is associated with Christianity. You have the same also with the civilization of Upper Egypt. Lily was a very important flower, and it is also seen in Roman and Greek myths. The lily is an important segment, and you have Lakshmi, and in Buddhist thought also the lotus. Now, I want to also talk to you about how the lotus is a very important part. Here, I'm going to talk really from the point of view of art history. And here you see the lotus again, very, very important, as I told you, in Buddhist thought. Here you have a female figure holding a lotus. It is from the stoop at Bharuch, which is present in the Indian Museum in Kolkata. What I'm going to show, or as we will see, you will see in this, particularly in the artistry, you will see how the lotus is represented by different artists. It looks different in painting, it looks different in sculpture. A lot depends on the material in which the flower is created. Now, you also see here the worship of the Bodhi tree with the Yakshini, again from the Bharuch stoop, which is part of the Shunga period, and you will see a stylized representation of the garlands and flowers which the Yakshis are holding here. Do you think you could remove this so that I can see better this thing? Yeah. Now, the flowers are also very, very important for us in when we look at Mughal art, when we look at Islamic art. And one of my favorite architectural monuments is the tomb of Itmad Dawla, which is also known as the baby Taj. And you know, unlike Hinduism, where the human figuration is so very, very important, and where human figures, because God is also made in the image of man, the human figuration becomes very, very important. In Islam, we do not have human figuration. So a lot of Islamic art you will see is shown through lot of floral motifs are shown, a lot of geometric motifs are shown. And in this, you see this beautiful Pietra Dura work. And in the main middle panel, in this particular frame, you see a vase laden with flowers. Yeah. Now, in Indian miniature paintings, you'll suddenly see a change here in the um, in the representation of flowers. In the miniature paintings in Indian art, particularly the Rajasthani miniatures, where there is a lot of depiction of the Nayak, Naika, Radha Krishna, the Raga Ragini, in the Raga Malikas, you have different Rag and Raginis under the beautiful flowering Kadam trees. And in this also, this is of course a folio from the Gita Govind of Mewar in Rajasthan. And you see Radha and Krishna in a floral bower. This is a watercolor on paper, and you will see the stylized representation of the lotus pond, the flowers which are growing across, the vegetation under the trees, the boudoir, which is decorated with flowers, and the entire, uh, meeting is outdoors. It is very al fresco. And you see here that nature or Prakriti, which is sacred, this is all a sacred geography. And you see the absolute abundance of flowers in this. Now, what I also want to show is that in this particular in a chapter which I've called Inscription, I wanted to show you how the champak flowers look right here. And I'm showing you two contemporary artists, how they are depicting flowers here. This is on the left-hand side is a more architectural work with flowers peeping out from one register. This is done by a contemporary artist called Aisha Khalid. It is a gouache on paperboard done in 2014. And the next year, there is a traditional artist who comes from Srikalahasti. He's actually a contemporary artist, but works in the traditional drawings of Kalamkari, which is one of the high centers of that, is Srikalahasti in Andhra Pradesh. And you see the way he's representing the lotus in this particular image. Now, this is actually one of my very, very favorite chapters, because as Amrita had also told you, that how flowers are all part of fragrances. And in India, a lot of fragrances were born. And in the Mughal period, the rose ittar becomes very, very important as part of how it was distilled actually by Jahangir's wife. She brought in the rose ittar. And we have a lot of fragrant flowers in India, like the jasmine, the rose, the hibiscus, and the essence which was distilled particularly from the rose and the lilies which we had, the lavender which is not so well known but grows a lot in India, and all this is used in aromatherapy today. A lot of aromatherapy and a lot of the rose in particular, the rose essence is also used in cooking. Kevda jal or the kevda essence is also used in cooking. So you see that Noor Jahan, the wife of the Emperor Jahangir, she was the one who brought in the itra henna. She made the henna itra for herself, and this was done by combining the essence of 30 varieties of roses and 5 varieties of chandan or sandalwood. And she used it so lavishly that the quantity was, if you used it, it could even last you a fortnight. So you have the absolute essence of 30 kinds of roses. So you can imagine the variety of roses that were grown in the Mughal gardens, and combining all of them. It was a huge artistry to make these special ethers, and this was done by Noor Jahan. And as I told you, that the marigold and the calendula, these are blossoms that have essential oils, and both the marigold and calendula are used as diuretics and as astringents. So the flowers not only have a decorative quality, they also have an edible quality. They also have a medicinal quality. They're also used to polish up your skin, bring that extra glow. They're used in facial masks and and of course for perfumes. Now, I just talked about Noor Jahan, and here is a lovely image of Noor Jahan, who's actually bejeweled, dressed beautifully, holding itardan in her hand, because she's the one who's synonymous also with making this gorgeous itar. Now, the champa flower, I'm showing you the champa flower on the right. It is one of the most popular flowers which is used in Indian miniature paintings. And a lot of things happen under the champa flower. Radha and Krishna meet under the champa flower. The garden always has champa flowers. It brings in this beautiful fragrance. And before, of course, I go on to the next chapter, I also want to tell you that one of the greatest perfumes which became very, very sought after was called the Gul Reazi. It was a Greek fragrance, and the name was based on the Persian festival called the Scattering of the Roses. And the festival originally took place when Laila Rukhi, the daughter of Aurangzeb, left Delhi for Kashmir for her marriage with the young king of Bukhara. So this was the most beautiful perfume, which was kind of a commemorate to the marriage of Laila Rukh and her movement away from Kashmir, from Delhi to Kashmir. There are lots and lots of stories about the romance with the flowers in India. Now, this is again another very favorite chapter which I devoted a lot of time to. Here, I want to just show you about the sanctity, how flowers are part of the divine, how every god in India has a special flower, and how the sacred and the divine come very close together. Now, on the left, you have a woman praying, making offerings to the sun god Aditya in a ritual performed while standing in water during the Chhat Puja festival. In Bihar, the Chhat Puja is almost as important as Diwali. It happens few days after Diwali. The women of the household, in particular, stand in the Ganga and worship the Shashti Devi and also worship the sun god. And always the archana is done with flowers. The flowers can be anything which they can pluck. There are no special flowers, but of course rose petals are there, jasmine is there, hibiscus is there, because hibiscus is quite the favorite of the Devi. So that is one image which is showing you how flowers are very, very important part of the rituals of prayer, the archana with which you begin the whole ritual itself. On the right-hand side, I want to show you a very stylized lotus motif on the roof of the Nataraj temple. I'm sorry, there's a error in my Nataraj. It's spelled wrong there, so apologies for that. But in Chidambaram, the lotus motif on the roof of the Nataraj temple, as you can see, it's a red lotus, because we also have the white lotus. We also have the Nilotpala, which is the blue lotus. Often you will see the, Parvati in a lot of South Indian sculptures, particularly in the Chola bronzes, standing in a Tribhanga, in that S-shaped posture with a Nilotpala in her hand, the blue lotus. She's always identified with the blue lotus. Now, this is the, I'm just trying to show you some kind of floral offerings which are done in different temples. And I've traveled a lot in my country, except for the Northeast, and I'm quite charmed by the way different states in India make floral offerings to their gods and goddesses. Now, here you see on the left-hand side, the hibiscus flower at the Guru's feet at the Chamundi Hill. There are many temples there in Mysore. It's a lot of Vesara style temples in Karnataka, and you see turmeric, haldi. These are very, very important parts of the rituals of prayer. And then you see on the right-hand side, again, this is a South Indian temple. You see this is in the puja, where you have marigold flowers and you have roses. The red and the yellow look extraordinary, the vibrancy of the colors, even though rose was not so much part of the traditional Hindu worship. It was more of marigolds, jasmine, hibiscus, jaba kusum. All these flowers were part of the rituals of worship. I just want to add a few things here. I want to just tell you about a few of my favorite flowers which are associated with particular gods or have affiliations. For example, Ashok. This is not actually a flower, it's a green tree, but I've added here because it has a sacred thing to it. Ashok, without grief. And this is associated a lot with Sita, because she found shelter and solace in her first year of imprisonment in the Ashoka Vatika. Then there is the Parijat, which I told you, which grew in the garden of Indra, and it is also who was the god of the gods. And even though it was fought over, it is also believed that it was it also led to the big fight between Indra and Krishna, because Krishna had to wrest it away from the garden of Indra to placate his two wives. Then there is the Kadam. The Kadam is a universal favorite amongst the gods, and it is said that Durga resides in the Kadam forest, and the Kadam forest is also supposed to be the playground for Lord Krishna. Now, there is another flower which is associated with Brahma, Vishnu, Lakshmi, and Buddha also, which is the Kamal, the lotus. And I've already told you there is the white lotus, the blue lotus, and the red lotus, which is known for it's also known, or it is also synonymous with purity, enlightenment, beauty, and holds the highest place in both Indian and South Asian philosophy. There is also the bakul. It is said that Lord Krishna used to seduce the milkmaids of Vrindavan while playing the flute under the bakul tree. And we also see that a lot of bakul trees were grown on the river Jamuna. Then we have the Malti. Malti is a beautiful, fragrant creeper which grows a lot in North India. And it is also, the Malti tree is in traditional Indian gardens was always grown because it had beautiful braids which you could make and put and adorn the hair of young damsels. So the Malti tree is also another important kind of tree, which is a flowering tree, which is grown in traditional Indian gardens. Then we also have the Nilkamal, as I've told you. Also the Ketaki. This is a beautiful, the Ketaki or the Kevra. Kevra ka dusra naam Ketaki bhi hai. And this is an aromatic bloom, which is surprisingly not used. We use it for a lot of other things, but Lord Shiva's worship, we don't ever, traditionally it is believed that we don't put the Ketaki flowers because it was cursed by Lord Shiva for because it was said that it was hearing the saying wrong things about Lord Brahma. It is sometimes offered in prayer to the Devi, but never to Shiva. Nilkamal, I had already explained to you how the Nilotpala is associated with Parvati. And then there is the Akund flower, which is the crown flower. It has a beautiful, agreeable fragrance, and it is very, very sacred to Shiva, and it is also part of the 5 Panchashayakas of Kamadev. And the Akund flower also has medicinal properties. Of course, then the Palash flower, which is also known as the flame of the forest. It is supposed to resemble a parrot's beak. That is why in Sanskrit it is also referred to as the it is also supposed to have a meaning because the parrot is a messenger of love. So the Palash being looking like the beak red like that of the parrot, it also has a special meaning. And it is also held by young Brahmin boys during their thread ceremonies. It is also used to feed the sacred flames during the ceremonies, the Havan ceremonies. Then we also have a lot of other flowers. For example, as I told you, the Jaba Kusum, which is completely, whenever you go, particularly in Calcutta, you go to a Devi temple, the garland which is offered to the Devi is a Jaba Kusum or the hibiscus plant, which is very, very dear to the Devi. Flowers are used as adornment as well. There's a chapter which I've done, the body adorned. And what you see is through painting, through sculpture, through a lot of visual representations, flowers are used particularly by women, also in the ancient times or pre-modern times. Flowers were also used by men, but primarily by women. And as I've said, from fragrances to medicinal properties, in the Kama Sutra, there is a whole, amongst the 64 arts, one of the arts is how to make perfumes. And most of the perfumes which were made in pre-modern times were floral-based perfumes. So here you have, I'm just showing you certain ways on how flowers adorn women. In fact, in Kashmir, the bride is dressed with flowers. It is called Phoolon ka Gehna. So they are decorated completely with flowers in Kashmir, and it is called, the ceremony is known as Phoolon ka Gehna. And on the left, you see an Indian bride wearing a floral tika. You see beautiful South Indian avali flowers, the red flowers in her hair of all the brides. They're called venis, and these are beautiful decorations of fresh flowers in their hair. Now, there is also a chapter where I did on enhancing spaces with flowers. In Kerala, in particular, there are beautiful rangolis which are done with flowers. In South India, in particular, there are beautiful flower hearts which you will see. And here I got a beautiful picture. In fact, I had gone to this lovely market, the KR market in Bangalore. It's a colorful market where you can just go, you know, that whole space, it becomes like a fragrant outdoor perfumery. The number of flowers that are there and the intermingling, it is absolutely, you are inebriated with the beautiful fragrances that you get in the outdoor. I'm going to show you some rangolis which are done, or the Pookolam as it is known in Kerala, where they do it for the Onam festival in Kerala. Now, I work at the Habitat and I couldn't resist taking a picture of the beautiful lotuses which grow. Actually, they're lilies, not lotuses. We have 2-3 water ponds here. And in the evening light, it is so beautiful to see these lotuses in the space where I work. Now, I want to show you some, I call it the Garden of Paradise, because, and I began with the bird of paradise flower here. What you see is that wherever you go, whether it was in ancient India where there was Vana Upavana Vatika, both the Mahabharata and the Ramayana extol the Vatikas. In fact, in the Ramayana, the Vatika is a very, very important place, the flower garden. The first time when Ram sees Sita, it's in a garden. The story of Abhiyan Shakuntalam is also based in a garden. So the flower garden becomes a very, very important space of interaction, and flowers are integral to the everyday in traditional outdoor spaces. And I'm just showing you the representation of flowers again through painting. This is called Flowers from Heaven by this contemporary artist called Manu Parekh. And you can see the number of lilies and the vase which he has done. And again, there is another beautiful Radha Krishna, again in a flowering grove. It is an opaque watercolor, gold on paper. And what you see is that the immortal love of Radha and Krishna, which is really, in philosophical terms, the union of Atma and Paramatma, it's always done in the outdoor, beautiful, flowering spaces. And nature and flowers in their abundance are shown in the miniature paintings, be they be Rajasthani, Kangra, Deccani, or the very Hindu Central Indian paintings from Malwa, either the Chora Panchisika group or the Lorachanda group. Now, here I want to show you how flowers are such an important part in textiles in particular, whether it is in block prints, whether it is in embroidery, whether it's in weaving. You know, the Surajmukhi, for example, in the Udiya saris. In the Patola saris, you have more of the geometrical patterns of flowers. The Kalpa Vriksha, for example, or the tree, which is a boon bestowing tree, is embroidered in a lot of states. On the left, I'm showing you a Kalpa Vriksha, which has been embroidered on cloth with mirror work from Gujarat. On top, I show you the process of hand block printing in Rajasthan. And the one below, which is really beautiful. Some of these palampores are absolutely gorgeous. This is from the Coromandel coast in India from the late 18th century. A lot of palampores were bought and taken to England, and a lot of the arts and crafts movement you will see sees a lot of flowers from India. In fact, if you go to the Kew Gardens in London, and they have a beautiful library, a beautiful, in fact, gallery with the flowers which the British not only exported but also imported to their country from the various countries they had gone and conquered. And I saw a lot of beautiful paintings of Indian flowers there. Now, here on the left, you will see a beautiful image of on a kalamkari painting on cloth from the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is instructing Arjun. And what you see below are certain floral patterns in the borders in particular, and in the cloth, which you see, this is all a beautiful line drawing. There I have shown you just a small bit from the palampore, but if you look on the right-hand side, these are beautiful. The Coromandel Coast palampores are absolutely stunning. They look like beautiful Persian carpets, actually. And I don't think I have shown you, I have had images of the beautiful floral patterns on our carpets, which actually came from Central Asia into India, from Iran, but we made our own beautiful floral patterns, which were taken from the Mughal gardens, from Mughal miniatures, and we have beautiful, beautiful floral carpets and a huge weaving and carpet making tradition with a lot of flowers in India. Now, the rose, which is the kind of the queen of flowers in India, and we have a variety of roses which we grow. The rose petals, as I told you, and I've mentioned it many times earlier, it is used as fragrance, cooking fragrance, and used in cooking, not only sweet meats, but also sometimes it is added in meats, which gives it a different flavor. Now, rose water, pure rose water, believe you me, is exceptional for the eyes. If your eyes are tired, if your eyes have got an allergy, you use rose water through the day. Within a day, your eyes will be absolutely beautiful. Khadi makes a beautiful rose water, and in highly polluted days in Delhi, I use it every morning and evening just to keep my eyes less irritable. It is really a magic if you have pure rose water and you dip a few drops into your eyes every day. Now, I had also told you earlier, lotus, of course, it is said that Brahma was born from the navel of Vishnu on a lotus. So the lotus, I've called it the emperor of flowers. And you see the lotus in a lot with associated a lot with the different gods and goddesses in Indian philosophy. But I couldn't resist showing this beautiful lacquer gul-e-bulbul, because the flower and the nightingale has always been synonymous. And you have this gul-e-bulbul on a screen, which is very beautiful. And it was definitely inspired frame from Iran. Now, here is Lord Vishnu holding the lotus flowers. This is from the Pahadi school of Basholi. And from a yoga manuscript in Brij Bhasha, you see the Sapta Chakra, which is there, and ultimately you see the lotus here too. I'm running out of time. There's the Lotus Temple in Baha'i, in the Baha'i Lotus Temple in New Delhi, which is shaped like a lotus, one of the big markers of the cityscape in Delhi. And this is beautiful floral decorations in the Mahabodhi complex in Bodh Gaya, and you see the lotus here. Of course, here you have the blossoms of the moon and the sun, the marigold, which brings in festivity every year. The marigold and the champa flower, which is a steel sculpture by Alex Davis, which he made. And you see a lot of flowers being used in different spas, which Amrita had mentioned to you earlier. And here I'm talking of the delectable blooms of the flowers, which are for ingesting and for producing beautiful fragrances and oils. The saffron pistils, which are from the saffron flower, really, the best come from Iran, Spain, and Kashmir. And they are used as flavoring agents for a lot of sweetmeats and meats. The gulkand, which is a beautiful sweetener for the mouth cleanser, the pan, which is made by soaking rose petals in sugar, so it is also very healthy. And the South Indian rava kesari, which is suji ka halwa, which is enhanced and enriched by the saffron flavor, which you see on the left. So with this, I end my presentation, but there's much more in the book, and so much more about basically the culture of flowers, how flowers play such an important role in our lives, in our sacred geography, in the panchakarma techniques in Ayurveda, in our foods, in decorations, whether it is the body or the textiles or the clothing we wear. So, the power of or the aesthetics of flower is so enriching. I hope you've enjoyed the sharing of my thoughts on flowers, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And for those who want to know more about it, please go ahead and order this book, because I can promise you, you will love it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pande. It was a very, very visual presentation that really made the talk come alive. If we can look at the questions now. What is the very first time that flowers appear in Indian art, say in Indian painting? What is the earliest you have found?
If you look at the Indus Valley and you see the priest there wearing the shawl, you have a trefoil design of a flower in the stole he's wearing. So flowers were known even in the Indus Valley, and you see the motif of the flower in the doshala or the shawl which the priest is wearing. So that's in sculpture. In painting, it's also there in terracotta. Any terracotta which is even much, whatever the earliest remains are, you have the motif of the flower. Then in painting, definitely Ajanta, you see a lot of it, because painting in India started with the frescoes, wall-based large murals from, say, the 5th, 6th century. And I showed you one of the earliest images was of the Bodhisattva Padmapani holding a lotus in his hand. So they start from the 6th, 7th century onwards.
There's an observation, or rather a question from Sukhi. She says that she's heard that the parijat is one of the very few flowers that can be picked up from the ground and offered to an idol of God.
Yeah, normally, yes, she's absolutely right, because normally the parijat normally any flower which reaches the ground or falls from the tree is never offered to the gods. But Parijat is the only one because it has actually a very beautiful story. You know, there was this princess who fell in love with the sun god. And the god, as I told you, there's a story for everything. The god did not respond to her affections, and she cried and cried and cried and was so hurt that she said that she would never want to see the sun again. And that's why the Parijat flower never blossoms through the day. It grows only at night. And in the morning, those are the tears of the princess who's been rejected by Aditya, or the sun god Martand. And those are her tears which fall on the ground. And that is the only flower which is picked from the ground and offered to the gods. Otherwise, no, we don't believe in using flowers which have fallen on the ground and then offering to the gods. So Sukhi is right, absolutely.
Suki is making a comparison between the Gul Riazi festival that you mentioned and Phool Walon Ki Sair,
Yes,
which used to be celebrated
in Delhi.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I've mentioned that in my book as well. So it's unfortunately not carrying on anymore. It used to be very much part of the practice of, and it was a very syncretic festival, very inclusive.
Yes.
So
the next question is about Yakshini. You mentioned Yakshini at the start. Who are these? And the querist says that he's always been interested to know about which flowers they are associated with.
So, you know, Yaksha and Yakshis are these figures which are associated with the outdoor. They are protective figures. The Yakshas, you have the Parkham Yaksha from Mathura, you have the different Yakshinis who are part of the ecosystem of the arts, and they are protective figures. They stand under trees. There are different, you have the, you know, even in Buddhist art, you have the Chulakura Yakshis. So they are protective figures, outdoor figures, nature figures, and they are associated normally with the good. So in actually in Kalidas's Meghadutam, that is the story of this Yaksha who was cursed because he was not doing his work, and he was taken off to Ramtek, and he was sending his thoughts and his love to his wife who he had left behind through the cloud messenger. So these people, yakshas, and they're protective deities. Actually, some of them are deities also, and I don't know if the yakshinis are associated with a particular flower, but I do know that many of them also stand under a tree. They're also known as the Shalabhanjikas, who stand under the tree, and these are young damsels who are supposed to be fecund and fertile, and they say that if their feet touches the tree, it starts flowering.
The next two questions are concerning names. Milind says he's not heard of the Akund flower. Is there any other common name for it?
Akund flower, I'll have to look into my book. I think there is another common name for it. I'll just look at it while you ask me the next question.
And he also wants to know if Malti is the same as Madhumalti.
Yes, it is the same as Madhumalti, for sure.
Dr. Heta Pandit is speaking to us from Goa. She says, can you tell us a little more about the flowers that we see on Parsi Garas?
The Parsi Garas, yeah, they're more, I think, there are more of them are roses, which I see a lot more. I haven't really gone into an in-depth study of that, but one thing I can definitely say is that they take a lot of inspiration from roses, the colors also, and they also bring in a little more of the floral patterns from Central Asia, because the Parsis came from there, and the colors also which they have are very different. Their palette is very different to the the Indian floral palette here. So they are more Central Asian in origin, and a lot of roses are there in the Parsi Garas.
Also chrysanthemums and lilies, Dr.
Yes, yes, yes. Because lily, as I told you, is again part of the Christian, and
Sure.
it comes in from Greek, Roman, Judeo-Christian, and Hindu. The lotus, this is all that whole lily kind of thing, which also you see a lot in Renaissance art as well.
Jyoti's asking about what do you think about keeping sprays of dry flowers vis-a-vis real? I'm sure that's the unsaid thing.
Well, everything has its own place, right? Now you have these bags of dried lavender which you keep in your cupboard to keep it fresh and fragrant. And the beauty of flowers you want to preserve and keep them. They're also very interesting. In the old days, when a flower was given by a lover to his or her beloved, then they would keep it pressed between the books and have memories. And there would be, with roses, there would be a faint fragrance. So different metaphors are there. Of course, we all prefer fresh flowers, but some flowers are also open to being dried very well, like the saffron stamens, which make it saffron, or roses, which you dry and you can, mix with honey and eat.
Yes.
So there are some flowers which are more open to being dried. Some flowers, I think the succulents don't dry so well. But like the paper flower, for example, it's called a paper flower. It has another name as well. But these flowers are open to being drying. So they also exude a fragrance with them. And they are used also for, as I've left this here for you, for tea infusions. In fact, they are very good for that. Calendula dries very well as well.
Staying with Jyoti's questions and comments, she says she does not think rose is an ancient Indian flower. And
Yeah,
she's not read about it.
No, it's not an ancient Indian flower. It came in, I think, if I am correct, it came in with the Arabs, maybe in the 8th century of the Christian era.
Okay. I think that takes care of all the questions, Dr. Pande. Thank you very much for a very interesting session. And more importantly, a very colorful session. Lots of facts, which I definitely had heard little about. So thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you, audience. Do keep on watching our social media for the next talks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.